All right then. So, Kushal, let's start with you. Also, let's
Sure.
start with introductions. Kushal, please introduce yourself once to the audience.
Sure, absolutely. So firstly, thanks a lot, Anushka, for having us on the show. It's an absolute honor to be here and guiding your entire audience. So hi everyone, good evening to each and every one of you. I am Kushal Lodha, a qualified chartered accountant in November 2019. Fortunately, got an all India rank across all the CA levels of examination, and then got into Aditya Birla Group in the management trainee program. Here I've worked with the Aditya Birla Capital Strategy and Development team. Then I worked with Group's Mergers and Acquisitions department, and I was also an executive assistant to the chief economist of Aditya Birla Group. After that, I got my final role in Aditya Birla Ventures, which is a newly set up VC fund where we invest in early stage growth startups in seed, Series A, and Series B rounds of funding. Apart from this, I've also cleared all the levels of CFA, so got lucky enough to clear last year also in the last week itself, 3rd of February. And I have also cleared ACCA, which is Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, and got a world rank 3 in one of the papers in ACCA as well. And apart from this, like I also like to create content on YouTube and Instagram where I interview industry stalwarts and just try to imbibe whatever they have achieved in their lives. Yeah, that's about me.
That's so great, and I should also mention that Kushal is just 22, so it's
Yeah, I'm 22, right?
exceptional what all he's achieved. Sarthak, over to you. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm the one who's really pulling up the age average in this group this evening. So I am 31. I did my undergrad in finance and investment analysis from Delhi University. There's this college called Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies. After which, and simultaneously, I was pursuing my company secretary, cost and management accounting, and CA. Completed my articleship, and thereafter, after getting the necessary 2 years of mandatory work experience, I went on to do my MBA from ISB, where I was the gold medalist for the class of 2017. Um, Luckily, I kind of took the option of not sitting for placements because I always wanted to kind of establish my own service vertical, my own brand into the domain of finance and business consulting. So that's what I've been doing post ISB, and for the past 5 years, I help startups raise funds, VC investing. I do virtual CFO services. So that's my area of work. I also make some amount of content, mostly around VC fundraising on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. But my primary audience is on Instagram for now. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You should, everyone watching this should definitely go to their Instagram handles and YouTube handles to check more. So let's start with discussing a little bit more about the courses that we've done. So Kushal, tell us a little bit about CFA as well as ACCA.
For sure. So starting off with CFA, that is the first and the primary course which I had also entered in 2018 itself. The primary reason of choosing CFA was I always wanted to get into the field of finance, and CFA is core specialization. So CFA is nothing but chartered financial analyst. So if a person wants to get into investment banking, private equity, venture capital, or equity research, or want to become a fund manager, or want to manage some portfolio of all the HNIs in the future, then I think CFA is a very good course. Like it has a lot of subjects in terms of wealth management, portfolio management, asset allocation, etc. And in this course of like 1.5 to 2 years, depending upon how many attempts you take to clear the course, it's like you're going to get a very good gist of finance topics. So if you're a person, let's say, who want to manage money of someone else, or if you want to invest in equity, stock market, if you want to know how to value a private company, how to value a public company, then I think this is one of the best courses. So the duration depends. Again, it's like it took me 3 years to complete because of postponement which happened in the level 3, but a person can complete it in 1 to 1.5 years if he completes, like, finishes all the levels in first attempt itself. So that is the typical duration, and the cost of this course ranges from 2 to 2.2 lakhs, again depending upon whether you register in the early stage, late stage, or in the standard registration. So again, the cost of the entire course is reasonable enough in terms of the opportunities, the return on investment which you'll get after clearing your CFA. So that's about CFA. Like anything into core finance and specialization in finance, you should definitely do this. And one big point or big positive about this course is that it's globally recognized. It's a course of USA, and you can get a very good job in a hedge fund, in an alternative investment fund, in a private equity. This is highly valued. And I think basis CFA qualifications, I know a lot of my friends who have just done their CFA, and they are doing very well in, let's say, Credit Suisse, CRISIL, Motilal Oswal, and doing equity research analyst, and just managing portfolio of other clients as well. So that's about CFA. Again, globally recognized. You
I'll
can get
just
good jobs in US
stop
as
you
well.
here once. So
Yeah.
overall, CFA is
Mm.
basically more about money management and valuation. So either it is for an
Right.
individual or for a company, or say in a PMS where you're doing it for a lot of individuals at a higher stake. So that's more or
Right.
less about CFA, and it's specifically
Absolutely.
designed for this particular purpose. Sarthak, would you now
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit more about CA and how it's different from CFA?
That's right. So I think CA, the focus, all of these courses in commerce have a specific focus that they really go after. So I think CA as a body, because they've lobbied and with a history of 60, 70 years, they've focused on getting statutory rights on putting their signatures on audit reports, which is why the focus of the chartered accountant fraternity is on auditing and on tax planning, because they were the first, say, tax planners for individuals, corporates in the nation. Which is why overall the domain moves to that. While of course subjects of finance are taught in CA, there are subjects related to cost accounting which are taught in CA. There's also IT, which is a part of the curriculum, which I think is a necessity in almost every course that one does today. However, the focus more is around audit and taxation. Also, purely with a CA degree, it may not really be possible for someone to get into a good finance role, because as you would know, PE firms, VC firms, a successful VC firm can run with just a team of say 7 to 8 people as well. A successful PE firm can run with just less than 10 people. Given that there's not a huge manpower requirement, the number of roles are much lesser, which is why they're more selective. And when they're more selective, they prefer for someone who studied finance as a specialization, which happens more in CFA, or they would just go for like an IIT and IIM pedigree profile, because that's an easy pick for them to bet on a person's intelligence and their willingness to learn and their general smarts to be able to figure these things out. Which is why I think core finance fields are a little difficult to crack with only a CA degree.
I would, however, say this also here that because I don't have a CA degree and I'm only with a CFA degree, I've also seen that CA is more widely recognized in India. So even for basic research analyst role, or even PE firms or venture capital firms in general, if they have two people and one is only with CA and the other is only with CFA and not taking a look at their undergrad, CA is always given a little preference, especially in the smaller to mid range of companies over CFA, because CFA still does not hold that wide recognition in India that CA does. So having a CA degree, essentially, if your undergrad is not that strong, like you don't have a very good college. So if you're from a tier 2 or a tier 3 college, then CA probably gets you a little better opportunities than just CFA. So that was something that I've personally experienced and seen people experience around me. Kushal, would you now like to tell us about ACCA? Is that a different course? I never actually understood that.
Yeah, I mean, quickly, just for ACCA, it's nothing but CA of UK. So ACCA is nothing but you will get again good roles in, let's say, accounting and taxation. So CFA is more focused towards finance. ACCA would be more focused towards accounting and taxation. So in simple terms, it's CA of UK, and again, there are like 13 levels, out of which 9 levels were exempt for me because I was a qualified chartered accountant, and I had to give only 4 levels extra. So that was one of the reasons of choosing this course. Again, this is globally recognized, and the major advantage of having this is that if in case I want to start something of my own in the future, let's say like I want to set up my own practice or set up my own firm, then it'll be easier for me to fetch clients from the UK because of this ACCA affiliation. So that is one of the main reasons of choosing an ACCA, and I think that's the advantage of getting good roles globally in accounting and taxation.
All right. And Sarthak, you've also done your MBA. So can you throw a little light on MBA as well as Masters in Finance?
Sure. So I think, funnily though, my MBA Masters was in strategy and marketing, because I thought I'd already studied so much of finance and accounting and taxation and all these other courses. My focus was around building some other skill set or getting at least a degree in it, so that if I want to establish myself as a overall business and strategy consultant, I do have some level of certification attached to it. While of course, above and beyond that is purely experience and your hard work and your learning in it. MBA, of course, in India, I think primarily in the world over, even with people who founded MBA schools. So, the Mr. Rajat Gupta, who was the managing partner of McKinsey at one point, he was one of the founding partners of ISB in India. And both his daughters have actually studied at Harvard. In a personal interaction I had with him, he said an MBA only gives you two things. One, it gives you a brand where it's easier for companies to identify pedigree and say this person must be smart, because the MBA college has done the entire hard work of picking the top 1 or 2% and then grooming them further. So first is the brand, the second is the network. Because literally, for someone who's never worked in a big finance PE firm or VC firm, to have started independently, I think the only reason I could do that is because of the network of people I studied with at ISB, and the alumni network, which is so strong, where people recognize my work and I could get access to those deals and those works. Which is why I think for anyone who's planning on exploring an MBA degree, more than looking at what you can really learn at the core level from a degree like that, I think it should ideally be the brand and the access to the network, which is of most value.
Absolutely agreed. And when you talk about masters in finance, the masters in finance as well as CFA has a lot of overlapping curriculum, is what people generally say about the masters courses. And also, when I was going for my masters, this is what I generally saw in the curriculum. So, suppose if you are someone who does not have the time to go for a full time masters or a full time MBA, then CFA is something. Yeah, then CFA is something that you can do alongside your work. So, talking a little bit more about the difficulty of these courses. So, we've covered CA, we've covered CFA, we've covered MBA, Masters in Finance, ACCA. Actually, one course that also people do a lot is FRM. So, any one of you would like to talk about FRM?
Kushal, I'm not an expert, so if you have some insights.
Yeah, I mean, even I've not done FRM, but from what I have like heard from people whom I've interacted with, again, FRM, it's financial risk management. So if you see at like every insurance company, every bank, every financial services entity, they'll have a separate risk management committee or separate like department which will manage their risks. So basically, every insurance company or every bank, they have to manage their risks because a lot of people's money are kept with these companies. So FRM is basically a course which will help you in order to land into these kind of roles, wherein you will have to manage some good amount of money of people of these companies, banks and insurance companies. And the here like major factor here is that you have to mitigate all the risks which are there in the banking or insurance space or in any financial services space. So that is about FRM, and like top again, it is more towards finance itself, and it is like not totally related to CFA as such, but I think what is the differentiating factor is that it's more specifically focused towards how do you manage your risk. So concepts like concepts of statistics are there in FRM. Then even practical other concepts like how do you mitigate some of the risks in these companies, those concepts are taught. And again, this is like there are two levels in FRM, and again you can give those levels in May or November. And yeah, I mean, I think that's about FRM. So one of my friends, he has done his FRM and he is working in JP Morgan in the risk management arm of JP Morgan. And he was just mentioning about the fact that FRM is recognized over there because the profile over there is just to manage the entire risk of the investment bank. So that's about FRM, nothing more.
All right, thanks a lot for that. So, Sarthak, you've done CA, you've done CS, you've done your MBA, and you've done another course as well, BA if I'm not wrong. So, if you have to talk about the level of difficulty of these courses, how would you rank them? And if you have general idea about other courses also in relation to this, the courses you've done.
Sure. So I think I've done BFIA, CA, CS, CMA, and then my MBA. So BFI is just another option that you could possibly have other than doing a BCom, because the college offered two courses. One was a BBS, where you could decide on your specialization in the third year, whether you want to go for a marketing or a operations or a finance kind of specialization. BFI instead, right through the 3 years of undergrad, would focus on finance right from the first go. So I think one idea was that while picking a course, it was more about getting admitted to that college which had a certain level of pedigree attached to it over whether BCom or whether BBS or BFI. So I think on that account BFI helped because my focus was more on doing finance. The seats, I think, are limited in India. They're just about at this point 60 to 80 seats. All India, they have like an All India test which they do for Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies. I think that's my understanding on the
So
latest
now
stats.
there are, I think, NMIMS and all. They also have specific bachelors in accounting and finance. Then they have bachelors of financial markets. So a lot of universities have come up with such specific dedicated courses for finance in the bachelors itself.
Lovely. So that's where I started off. So you would think the difficulty level is very similar to what it is for BCom. I think the idea is that if the selection criteria for the college is higher, it's just about getting to kind of rub shoulders with people who are fairly who've accomplished a little more in terms of academics. I wouldn't say smarter. I would just say, having accomplished a little more academically. Plus, I think in the BFI course, we also had a great chunk of the class, at least 30%. And I believe this statistic has remained throughout, all through till this date, is a lot of people who took up sciences in the 11th and 12th also choose to take up finance. So I think it's a good area for them to kind of move away from the sciences, where a lot of science people explore the option of probably going for economics. I think this opens up a finance option for them. That's where this came in. However, apart from that, when we talk about comparing CA, CS, and CMA, which are your traditional trinity in commerce, as they would have, and people a generation above even me or two generations above me, they would focus on building, say, their expertise in these three courses. CS focuses on corporate law. You will also study accounting, tax, audit there, but the focus is on corporate law. And CMA, the focus is on cost accounting. Um, from that overall perspective, I think between these three courses, CA is the toughest to crack. It has the lowest conversion. It requires the most amount of effort. Even the study material out of all of them is the hardest. With CMA, quite honestly, and even with CS, I think if you very intelligently just look at the past 10-year papers, and evaluate them well, you can still identify trends and you can find a smarter way to crack it. I think with CA, what it requires is a lot more hard work and in-depth study, because you never know, every year there can be a googly in the paper. And given that CA course has more number of students in comparison to CS and CMA, I think the institute also feels a sense of responsibility to ensure that only a certain set percentage or number is getting passed on a yearly basis, which is why there may also be a certain sense of normalization to ensure that the supply in the market is not huge all in one go. So definitely I felt CA to be the hardest among these three. Then came in line CMA, and the third had to be CS. MBA, quite honestly, is just about if you can crack either the CAT in India and get a 99 percentile plus, or you can crack, if you're aiming for international schools, then it's not just about GMAT, it's about your overall personality, what all have you done, your extracurriculars, achievement at work, because most colleges require at least 2 years of work ex. So I think all of that really matters in there. It's not just about academic smartness.
Thanks, Sarthak, for that. Kushal, would you want to tell a little bit about CA versus CFA, the level of difficulty, and how you
Yeah.
prepared for that as well, since you're a recent graduate?
Sure, sure. Thanks for asking that. I think about CA, I think Sarthak has exhaustively covered everything. So the difficulty level of CA would be much more as compared to difficulty level of CFA. The only reason being that the curriculum is very vast. You have to like memorize and you have to study a lot of concepts, almost eight different subjects in CA finals, and the curriculum is extremely vast. A normal module of direct tax would be of 2,500 pages, the four modules of direct taxation. So that's the vastness of curriculum. So it'll also take a lot of time in terms of preparing it. So I think CA would be more difficult than CFA. Now talking about the preparation for both these courses, starting with CA, just to quickly give you a gist. So basically, I prepared in terms of focusing more on the modules of ICAI itself, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and the preparation strategy was just to ensure that whatever subjects I am studying, the concept should be clear in the leave period itself before getting into the examination. All the concepts should be clear, and that was one of the major strategies. And secondly, what I focused was more on effective studying rather than total hours of studying. So I always advise to all my audience also that effective study is much more important and better than total hours of studying. So studying effectively for 8 hours is much better than studying for 12 hours a day with 4 hours of distraction. So that's the thing which helped me in order to stay concentrated and focused for my CA academics. And I used to divide the 8 subjects into 2 parts. So like one theory, one practical. I used to study theory in the morning and practical subject in the afternoon. So it used to ensure that during morning the mind is fresh. So that was the reason I chose theory subject over practical one in the morning. This is about
Did you take
CA.
classes for
And
it as well for CA?
yeah. I did take classes for CA finals. Do you also want me to get into like what all classes I took for which subjects, or
Yeah,
like?
please. It'll give people an idea.
All right, for sure. So, like in terms of classes for CA finals, what I usually advise is that there is not much need to join classes for theoretical subjects like law, audit, risk management, etc. Because these subjects you don't have to do anything. You just have to like see the provision, and you have to ensure that whatever is the provision, whatever is the law, you have to write that in the paper. So I usually don't recommend to join classes for theoretical subjects, but for practical subjects, I had joined my classes. So specifically speaking, subject-wise for financial reporting, which is nothing but accounts, I had joined like Sarthak Ahuja sir. He was from Indore. I had taken his pen drive lectures itself. And for SFM, I had taken coaching from my Nasik faculty itself, Mindfuck Academy, Mayur Sanghvi sir. So I had taken like coaching. He's a CA, CFA, and FRM. So I thought that it'll be best for me to take coaching for strategic financial management. For other subjects like costing, I taken from AJ Next, which is Anuj Jalota Education Next. It's in Mumbai itself, and they've started their pen drive coachings. And for direct tax also, I've taken Arish Khan, who was from Mumbai itself, and I had taken his live batch. So for indirect tax, it was Yashwant Mangal, and I had taken his coachings. It was only for 100 hours for indirect tax subject. And for audit and law, I think I did it by myself since they were theoretical subjects. Even risk management. For risk management, I had taken Sanjay Saraf. He's a faculty out of Kolkata. He's also faculty for CFA, etc. And that was one of the subjects I'd taken coachings from him. So these were the coachings which I'd taken. And I think theoretical subjects like you just need to do by yourself. That's more than it. So this is about the classes for CA. And CFA के लिए specifically, I had only referred Schwezer notes. I did not join any coachings for all the 3 levels. Schwezer is like Kaplan University के notes आते हैं Schwezer, and you can like just order them. And there are 5 books in total. Apart from 5 books, there are Practice Volume 1 and Practice Volume 2. Even
So,
if you
is
do
there a
all
lot of
these books,
overlap between CA and CFA? Did you find
I
that you
mean,
didn't have to study for CFA because it was covered more or less in CA?
so level one, I think 80% of the curriculum of level one of CFA matches with what is taught in strategic financial management in CA. But in level
Okay.
two and level three, I think the depth and expertise of what is taught in CFA is much more than the depth and expertise of what we are taught in strategic financial management. So to answer your question, level one is more or less the same, but level two and level three, it is very much detailed, and you won't get that same curriculum in your CA finals.
All right. But if I talk about my specific CFA journey, for CFA level one, even I didn't take classes, and I felt
Hmm.
it's more theoretical. So it's very easy. You read from your Schwezer notes, which, as Kushal
Correct.
said, is series of books which are actually a summarized version of the notes or the curriculum that CFA gives. So it's a very decent set of notes for level one. But level two, especially if you don't have any finance background and if you've not worked or done any other course, then the concepts become a little difficult to understand only
Hmm.
from the Schwezer notes, because it's a lot of practical. You have to do a lot of sum solving, and in the notes, not a lot of detail is given over how those formulas have come and all. So I didn't take
Right.
classes for level two, but I would, and that is why I took a lot of time to study for it. But if you've not done any other course and you're only preparing for level two, then definitely consider taking some classes or even pen drive lectures, because it gets a little practical. Then level three again goes a
Yeah.
little more to the theoretical side, so you may or may not take classes for that. So yeah, I
Right.
guess this was a little bit
And in
discussion
fact,
about.
Anushka, just to add on what you said, so there is this faculty also, Arif Irfanullah from IF2.
IF.
So that
Hmm.
is also a very good class. I mean, he has his lectures uploaded even on YouTube. So what I used to do is that if I don't used to understand any topic, I used to watch
Hmm.
his revision lectures. So they were available free of cost, and I think that was one of the best resources for
But
me.
that's only for level one. Level two is paid, no?
Mm,
If I'm not wrong.
No, I mean, even for level two and level three, you can get some good videos on YouTube on specific topics. But if you want to buy the entire course, of course, like I'll highly recommend if you want to buy the revision classes or other detailed classes. So if you are stuck up on one topic, you can definitely watch his videos.
All right. I'll actually ask a couple of questions before we get on to the careers aspect of it. Sarthak and Kushal both. Kushal, please go first. Bloomberg recently said that CFA is a colossal waste of time. Do you agree
Hmm.
with that, since you've come into the job market recently? What do you
Hmm.
see, or do you see the value not being there for CFA?
I mean, partially disagree with the statement. I think a colossal waste of time. I would definitely not think CFA would be a waste of time at all, because the thing is that you're going to learn at least some of the other things from the courses which you're going to, the concepts which you're going to learn from CFA curriculum. So my point would be that, see, the market is structured in such a way that even all these top I banks, Bank of America, like any top rating agency, CRISIL, or even other I banks like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citibank, etc. All these foreign banks also, if you see a lot of these associate level professionals who are there, they have this CFA qualification. So I think the job market is structured in such a way that CFA is highly recognized. And not only that, the concepts which you are taught, they are going to ensure that you work in the professional manner. So right from ethics, the code of conduct of a CFA, from portfolio management and wealth management, these concepts would be there with you lifelong. And like the perception of any company or any person who is like approaching a CFA qualification person, so the perception is completely different. It changes completely. So I don't think it's a waste of time, to be honest, but the market is structured in such a way that all these hedge funds, top equity fund managers, and even top alternative investment funds, they prefer a CFA qualification, because CFA is the only course as of now which will help you in order to expertise in the wealth management section. So that is my view.
And I, from my personal experience, that I had zero knowledge about the finance field. So everything, my level, like my introduction to finance was from the CFA course and the little bit books that I read. But CFA helped build a very solid fundamental base for me to understand other concepts. So especially level one, I felt it was very advantageous to me because I understood a lot of concepts, and on top of that, I could build a lot. And when it comes to jobs as well, having only a BCom degree will not get you, especially from an average college, will not get you a lot of core finance jobs, especially in the portfolio management or equity research segment. Having CFA gives you an incredible boost to enter those particular jobs. All right, Kushal, I think this question again is for you here. So, is CFA a good option after completing CA Inter if finance seems attractive?
Yeah, I think this is like one of the most common asked questions to me. So my advice here would be that if you are a person again who wants to enter into core finance, core investing, core stock markets, etc., then I think you should definitely go for CA. After your CA inter, if you aren't doing any other course, then you should definitely go for CFA right after your CA inter itself. So that the point here is that whatever you're going to be taught in your CA final classes of strategic financial management, it will be easier for you to cope up with CFA curriculum, because level one is almost 80% same with what you're going to be taught in your CA finals. So if you are interested into core finance, then I think you should definitely go for it. And the right age would be after your once you start your CA final classes, then that is going to be the best time, because आपको क्या है कि एक ही आप पढ़ोगे तो दोनों चीजें कर सकते हो. So just studying for CA final SFM will also help you to study for CFA. तो आपका time बहुत save हो जाएगा. So that's my advice. And definitely, if you are a core finance geek, then you should definitely go for it after your CA inter itself.
Sarthak, this question is for you. CS plus CFA, is it a good option? And especially if the person's a CA student. CS student, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So see, CS is mostly done in combination with LLB for the simple reason that CS is more corporate law focused. And a lot of people who want to get into corporate law, they do their LLB, but only to develop an expertise of specific corporate laws like the Companies Act or FEMA, and to understand structuring and taxation better. What they do is they take a CS degree as well, so that it gives them a push or a boost in comparison to someone else who's just an LLB. So I think that's a combination that works better. It's very interesting to say that with CFA, would CS help? I think that combination I've not seen as much, at least in the peers I know of. But clear use cases for that degree, I think, would be understanding finance as well as structuring. So, if you're really getting into private equity, VC, deal structuring, things like that, I think that's a wonderful, wonderful combination for one to go for.
All right. So, Sarthak, coming a little bit more towards the kind of careers you can expect from specific courses, what are the career options one can have after CS as well as CFA? Please talk a little about that.
Sure. So I think after CS, the idea would be you can either practice take an LLB degree along with it, which a lot of people do. So they may not be going to regular LLB colleges, but they can do certain distance learning LLB programs, which are 3-year courses. Simultaneously work with either a company secretary's firm or a lawyer in the corporate law department. I think immediately after, what they can do is they can either take the bar license to practice as a lawyer specifically in corporate laws, or join a bigger law firm and be a part of corporate law division. I think specifically in the past 10 years, given the amount of FDI which has been coming into India, the number of new entrepreneurs which are coming up, especially with the startup wave, I feel the requirement of company secretaries and corporate deal structuring has been on the rise. Not to say that the CA degree doesn't teach you any of that, not to say that the CFA degree doesn't teach you any of that. I think all of that is there, but the CFA degrees focuses more on developing skills in finance. CS is more centered around the Indian laws. So, that way, if you know that you have to do deal structuring related to India and domiciled in India, that's where the CS degree really comes to help. However, from an international transferability of skills perspective, I feel CFA is a better skill to have, which can get you a job in different parts of the world if you're someone who's looking to kind of go abroad. CS will limit your understanding to India. Also, I feel CS is a degree. There would be enough company secretaries who might also, in terms of, if they're establishing their practice initially, might also get into tax filing, other compliance, because they may feel like that's low hanging fruit that's coming towards them while they're setting up their practice. So I think beyond a point, it really depends on what is the niche that you're going after. So there is a possibility that even if you join a CS firm, but they don't have enough deal flow, or they don't have enough work coming in for, say, doing a series B round for a startup, or doing an M&A transaction, then the CS degree kind of goes to waste. And I also know enough lawyers who haven't done CS but are working with the top tier, say top 10, one of the top 10 law firms of India, and without a CS are very active participants in M&A transactions and know the entire workflow. So I think beyond a point, it's important to understand that these degrees are just, one, they set the right fundamental for a knowledge base for you to get started with. Second, for certain roles, they are passports for you to meet the eligibility criteria. I think beyond that, it's purely about a lot of skills which you need to develop. And I'm certain everyone will agree that exactly what they're doing at work today, they had the fundamentals right from their degree, but they had to learn so much more on the job, and they had to learn so much more from their seniors on how to actually execute what they've learned in theory, which is where I think getting the right work experience also comes as the next step. So
So, Sarthak,
corporate law, M&A.
sorry. Yeah, please
Please, please.
continue. You were
No, go ahead.
summarizing.
Yeah, so to summarize, corporate law, M&A, I think that's where company secretary has a great advantage.
All right. So, what is an expected entry level salary of a CS? And considering a very average student, not talking about the higher end top salaries.
Okay, so I think the answer to that would also lie in the fact that a lot of people, for whom they make it their life's objective to pass a particular degree, be it CA, CFA, CS, there is an idea that there is a certain sense of entitlement attached to, once I pass this degree, at least I should earn 1 lakh. मतलब सीए को या सीएस को इतना भी नहीं मिल रहा महीने का, तो क्या फायदा हुआ इतनी पढ़ाई करने का. I think that mentality has to change. So there is a possibility, and I can talk about in the market right now, there are enough and many people who may have passed their CA degree in the first attempt and their CS degree in the first attempt, and when they go out looking for a job, may only get an offer for say 50,000-60,000 per month to begin with, but their expectation would be, no, I should get a 1.5 or something of that sort. So I think beyond a point, it may start with 50. I think is a fairly decent for an average student to think of getting in with. What really helps is if people have better presentation skills, if they're more well read with what is happening in the world, if they read the Economic Times, the Financial Times, they're very aware of what is happening. I think it really helps you get better roles rather than just having passed your exams and having absolutely no other knowledge of what is happening in the financial world.
I
So
guess
then,
this really helps, having knowledge of what's happening in the real world, because I remember when I was applying for internships, I used to read Forbes magazine, Entrepreneur magazine, and Economic Times on a daily basis. And I still have those newspapers marked with, things I didn't understand. But that helped me so much that the questions that the firm was asking me, all of those questions were somehow related or somewhere related to what was happening in the real world, and that really helped me get an edge over others who might have been applying. So especially in finance, it's very important to know what's happening around you. Kushal, can you throw a little light upon how much can a CA earn? Here again, since you are a topper, you can probably talk about the higher end salaries, and but also what an average CA would get, considering they've passed more or less in one attempt or or two attempts.
For sure. So let me begin by the lower one. So basically, if you, let's say, clear your CA finals and you want to get into a big four in KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, or EY, and if you want to get into, let's say, auditing department, then the salary can range from 6 to 8 to 10 lakhs, depending upon which organization you're joining in and what's your work profile. So one of my friends, again, she got placed for 8 lakhs per annum in PwC statutory audit. Other friend of mine got in EY at 9 lakhs per annum in statutory audit. So depending upon the profile and all, it depends from 6 to 8 to 10. This is about the auditing department. There are some other departments where CAs are recruited nowadays. Like for example, in EY, there's a TAS department, separate accounting advisory services department, where it's more of you have to you are a consultant over there and you have to provide services related to advisory. So again, that is on the higher end, and there you can get variable pay as well, depending upon how your performance is. It can range between 10 to 15 lakhs, and that is on a higher scale because the working hours are usually longer there, and the kind of role, kind of intellect required in that accounting advisory role, that is going to be higher. So starting can be from 6 to 8 lakhs. That is a decent amount. A CFSS should definitely earn that. On the higher end, if you get a rank in your CA finals, if you get into top, let's say top management consulting firms like McKinsey, BCG, Bain, the salary range can be somewhere between around 16 to 22 lakhs per annum, depending upon which of the MBB you are getting in, or which of the other consulting firms you are getting in. Apart from this, if you, let's say, get into some other management trainee programs, there are a lot of organizations like Aditya Birla Group, ITC, Marico, HUL, Johnson and Johnson, or a lot of Procter and Gamble. All of these companies have their own management trainee programs. So management trainee means what? You are rotated across 3, 4 different stints for, let's say, 4 months or 5 months, 6 months each. And then after your trainee period is over, you are given one final role depending upon where your interest lies and where, like, if the manager also liked you, so you'll get a final role. That is a management trainee program. The salary in a management trainee program can range from 20 lakhs to 30, 35 lakhs per annum. There are companies in the FMCG space. So all of you would know, like, the FMCG businesses usually pay higher as compared to other industry players because of the fact that, again, the conversion rate, the sales conversion rate there is higher. They are usually debt-free companies, and they prefer a lot. They prefer students who are going to be there for the rest of the career. So all these HUL, Marico, these FMCG companies, they pay around 25 to 30 lakhs per annum for a CA rank holder if he can get into these kind of companies. So on a lower scale, you can earn like 6 to 8 to 10 lakhs per annum if you get into a big four or mid-sized CA firm in Mumbai. But on the higher scale, I feel that the salary can go up to 20, 25, 30 lakhs per annum if you get into FMCG companies. Talking about some rankers, some of my friends who got into top investment banks as well, the salary range there is quite good, more than the FMCG companies as well. So if you get into Bank of America, Citibank, the fixed salary is 35 to 40 lakhs per annum, and the variable pay in these investment banks can be almost 50% or 25 to 30% depending upon how the deal gone through. So the total can be around 35 to 40 lakhs per annum in the top investment banks like Bank of America, Citibank, etc. So yeah, this is the salary range.
All right. So if I talk about only CFA, like if you have only a CFA degree and you're from an average college, then and you're a level 3 cleared, then again, it's similar to say a 40, 50,000. Also, it depends which 40, 50,000 per month. Also, it depends which role that you are opting for. So generally, equity research roles have their figure in 40 to 50. Some investment banks, and if you get qualified for private equity roles, they will have a relatively higher salary than a general equity research role. And again, it depends upon if you're joining a small firm, your salary will be on a lower end. Getting in one of the bigger names will be relatively difficult if you don't have a good college, but even though you have CFA, but if you do, there also the salary is a little on the higher end. So this was about only if you have a CFA degree, along with a very average college. Now, Sarthak, tell us a little bit more about MBA degrees. So I understand you didn't do core finance, but what are generally the packages like for core finance MBA or masters in finance, or what do they look like? Here,
Sure.
I please talk a little bit about how the top colleges as well as average college MBA degree differs.
That's right. So I think if you talk about the top colleges, which would be the top IIMs as well as ISB, I think at my time, which was about 5 years ago, the median salary at ISB for our batch was at roughly about 23, 24 lakhs per annum. And now I think it's roughly around 27 or so. But 5 years down, I know enough in many people who've actually crossed the 50 lakh threshold very easily. And when you kind of include ESOPs, it comes to about 60, 70 lakhs for a great deal of the people. So that's at the higher rung, where you can imagine in the first 5 years after MBA, you can cross the 50 lakh threshold if you're from the top tier. Regardless of whether you're in marketing, finance, strategy, I think all across I've seen, again, if you're, there are enough and many people who even at that time got a starting salary of 60, 70, or close to about 40, 50 immediately after their ISB MBA. But I think it's important not to talk about extremes. Let's stick around with medians. So I feel 5 years down, one can easily touch 50, which is not very difficult to do. However, for other people that I know who are from, say, lesser known or probably like a tier 2 of MBA colleges, I think 12 to 15 is easily something that people can possibly manage as their starting salary, and then it kind of grows beyond that. So yes, that's my understanding, and I think 5 years down they can get to like a 20 lakh this possibility. Again, a great deal depends on which college you're from, but one can expect
All
that.
right. So, Sarthak, asking you a blanket question here. Could you, so today, in terms of practical applicability as well as the scope of a degree, considering CA, CFA, and an MBA, and even FRM, which degrees would give you a better foot in the door in the industry, as well as help you grow as well and have a good pedigree?
Sure. So I think for a lot of people, even after they complete their education, they're literally lost about what do I really want to do in my life. So I think if you're feeling you're in that position, you can't really decide what you want to do. Out of these degrees, possibly CA is the safest bet you can take, because you're exposed to audit, tax, accounting, finance, and you can explore it. At the same time, there comes a legacy brand attached with the institute that you're doing it from, that people know, okay, at least he's a hardworking guy who's put in hard work to pass this degree. After that, I know enough chartered accountants, my friends, who've switched over completely to marketing and strategy after their CA because they went into MBA. They came in, now they're managing, like, heading marketing for media companies, for tech companies, doing all of that. So I think CA, you could think in that account, would be like an IIT degree for you, where after that you can get into finance, you can get into marketing, you can get into tech, you can do whatever. So if you're undecided, that's the safest bet you can really take. If you're certain you want to get into finance, then CFA would be a more focused approach. And FRM, I think, I haven't done it, so take whatever I say with a pinch of salt. I know enough friends who took up FRM much earlier, and they said it was comparatively easy to pass. It wasn't as difficult. So if that's the general view on the course, I think along with the undergrad, people could possibly explore taking their CFA level 1, FRM degrees, and see if they have interest in it. Immediately after undergrad, they can complete their level 2, level 3, and go all in. But if you're unsure, go for a CA, because in not being sure, if you're counting on clearing the CAT and getting into an MBA, a lot is contingent on whether you will get above 99 percentile, will you be able to crack the top colleges. At least with CA, you will have something in hand, like one degree, which is recognized in hand. So that's my view on it. In terms of general skills for work, what is required? I think a lot of these degrees there is a lag element. They take some time to catch up with what is really happening in the world. So easily there's a 5 to 7 year lag between really upskilling, even with valuation, what you will study in these courses and how companies are getting valued now. There is a difference because economically there would be matters like liquidity, excessive liquidity, less liquidity, what is the market sentiment, that really makes a big amount of difference. So yeah, I think regardless of what course you do, you need to be well aware, you need to be well read, you need to subscribe to enough and many newsletters, blogs, um, video subscriptions, channels, and figure out what is of your interest and then go deeper in it. So I never did a CFA. I never imagined I would be interested in finance. Quite honestly, I wanted to do more of business consulting. But picking up on one thread or the other, getting into it, I just got into finance, which is more of my area of work now.
Thanks for asking that, answering that, Sarthak. Kushal, actually, my question to you is, since you've entered the job market recently, what were your expectations when you were pursuing CA and CFA, and what was the reality when you actually entered the job market? And not only for you, because I guess you were from the top cream of the crown, but like your friends
Hmm.
around also who have joined, say, the big fours or some other companies, which is core finance.
Hmm. I think that's a tricky question to answer, to be honest. So expectations versus reality in terms of, if you're asking in terms of salary range, I think the expectations would be somewhere around like Big Four. I used to know there, like that at that point of time, they used to pay stipend to articles. So a lot of my friends were in Big Four doing their articleship, which is nothing but internship working under a CA. The stipend used to be 15, 20, 25,000 per month, and that was the stipend which these Big Fours used to pay. So the expectations from a Big Four were somewhere around 8 to 10 lakhs or 12 lakhs per annum. And apart from this, like a person who has done his CA as well as CFA, if he's getting into some good iBank or some good management consulting or PVC, then the expectations would be somewhat larger on that front. And I think basis that in terms of reality, when we just went into the job market. So let me tell you once. So I'll just share this experience with all of you. So I ended up giving interviews in campus placement. So ICI, which is the institute, organizes campus placements for a lot of students, for the rank holders as well as for the non-rank holders. And if you ask me, the average salary range over there used to be somewhere around five. Some companies used to pay as low as 3 lakhs, 3.5 lakhs per annum, 4.55 lakhs per annum. That was the amount which was given to these CAs who have like worked for 5 years, who have studied for 5 years, and still this is the amount which they were getting. So like answering your question just about the reality front, I realized after getting into the campus placement that at my time, at least, the job market was very, very poor in terms of the demand was not that much and the supply was very high. In my attempt in November 2019, 14,000 CA had qualified, including the old as well as new course. And out of these 14,000 courses, even assuming that people applied in campus placement, the conversion ratio of getting a job was only 10 to 15% because these companies did not have that amount of vacancies at all. So that was the reality. And I think that this was basically because of the fact that a lot of CAs had applied in a lot of companies, but companies were looking for people who not only have some theoretical background, but also have some other extracurricular activities or other things which might help them to add value in that organization. So that is one of the reality which I realized after clearing my C and getting into campus placement. And I think, as Sarthak rightly pointed out, it's very important to stay updated with what's happening in the economy. If you get into campus placement, all these recruiters know that you have cleared your CA, so you would know what is the GST provision, what is the Income Tax Act, what is the company law, etc. They want to know that whether you also know what's happening around the globe. What are your views on that? If you are a good communicator, whether you can articulate effectively, that is what is required as of now. So that is the reality which is different from my expectation, which was different from my expectations.
But if you have to talk a little bit more about what you studied versus what you're doing
Hmm.
currently, or even in the big
Okay.
fours, what they study and what
Hmm.
they do, is it
Hmm.
something which is it directly translates, or do you have to do a lot of on-the-job learning? How does that work?
Right. So for
Especially if you've
me
done
specific,
science only,
correct, correct. So
yeah.
right. So for me specifically, it'll be very different from what I have studied in my CA with what I'm doing as of now. But if you ask me, like, if let's take a generic example, if a person has got into auditing in a Big Four or taxation in a Big Four, so what we are taught in auditing and taxation in our CA curriculum, that would somewhat resonate to what they are doing in their lives. So if a person is doing, let's say, an assessment and litigation department of taxation in a big four, the work over there would be to read a lot of case laws, understand the provision, the section of the Income Tax Act, and then make his argument in front of the judge, whatever, like wherever he's going. So talking about those kind of roles, international taxation, auditing, transfer pricing, or let's say cost accounting, these would be somewhat related to what they have studied in their CA curriculum. But if you ask me for my specific role, let's say like I was an executive assistant to the chief economist of Aditya Birla Group. At that point of time, I think I did not even apply a single learning of academics in my practical life, because what I was doing was completely different. Like let's say forecasting projections of GDP, projections of coal prices or other prices for the next 2 to 3 years, or maybe just assisting him in writing newspaper articles on some hot topic in Live Mint, Economic Times, etc. So again, it depends from person to person, but anyone who's going into taxation, auditing, these kind of roles, it's going to be somewhat similar. And talking about finance roles in investment banks, a lot of things which we are taught in CFA, that is going to be applicable in iBanks. So valuations, then creating an entire model from scratch, all those concepts of free cash flow to firm, free cash flow to equity, debt payback period, NPV, IRR, all these concepts are used in investment banking and even in the venture capital fund. So when, like Sarthak would also know, when we are evaluating any startup, we look at the lifetime value, the customer acquisition cost, what is their CM1 contribution margin 1, 2, and 3. And after all these factors only, we decide whether to invest in a startup or not. So all these concepts, I think they were taught in CFA as well as CA. So that really helped me here in my practical life. So it depends from person to person, but I must say that, of course, whatever is learned in CA CFA, I'm able to apply it right now, at least in the current profile.
All right. Sarthak, my question to you, and this is the last question here. 5 years into your career, I would say more than five, but after your MBA, have you seen your degrees helping you? And if you could bifurcate a little that, how has your CA helped you? How has your MBA helped you? That will be a little helpful. So, how have your degrees helped you?
Sure. I think my first differentiating factor was when I kind of completed my undergrad. College would really get me like good recommendation, good kind of pedigree at the time when I started doing CA and CS. So at least in a basic network, people would trust me with better work, thinking that he's coming from a better college. So that was the first part when I really realized, okay, it helps to have a good degree or good name of a college on your profile. Second bit was after I did my CA. I think because I simultaneously did CS CMA and I'd not taken any coaching for any of that, and I completed after regular college all of this by 23. So I think I got I got published about in Business Standard, Financial Express and all, as the youngest at that time with regular college and all these degrees by 23, which I think gave me where I would send my profile in terms of to clients to kind of get work. I think they would feel, okay, here's a smart guy who we want on our team. So, more than the degree, it's really what you add as a frill over and above that to kind of differentiate yourself from the competition. I think that's the idea. With MBA, because I kind of wanted to build a bigger vertical of bigger ticket size work for my practice, that's why the network and the brand immediately helped me. Where immediately after, when I came back into doing auditing and things like that, when I would put a proposal with, say, an international not-for-profit organization or like an international MNC, a profile for audit, at that time when they would see ISB as an add-on, they would say, even if the cost proposal for this firm is higher, we want to hire this person because he'll not just bring in the audit expertise, he might bring in some other business expertise or analysis on this as well. And now after all these years, I think other than just degrees, it's the fact that I am fairly active on social media, especially on LinkedIn and Instagram, where my content is focused around deal and business analysis and how to go about taking decisions in business. I think so I work with a lot of clients, great marquee names who I would have never imagined that I would get to work with. And it's as recent as last week, I was in conversation with the director, and he did not know that I went to ISB or I had CA, I had something, but he recognized the fact that he finds a lot of value in my content or in my presence or the kind of things I say. So the takeaway from this entire monologue has to be that you cannot rest on your laurels at any point. So, if you've done a CA, you have no entitlement in life. No one owes you anything. You put in effort, very good. Everyone else who's passed the degree also does. You've done an MBA every year. There are thousands of MBAs in India. Eventually, it is the value that you give either to your employer or to your customer. And if you think there is competition, there are more people with the same degree as you, good for you. Find a new way to add more value, and that's the only way to progress. So I think, as you said, 5 years after my MBA or 10 years of total work X, now I would say those degrees were important at that time to expose me to the right opportunities. But had I not added on to it every single year, so I have a goal that every single year I have to have a professional accomplishment which is in addition to what I'm already doing. It may not necessarily be a degree, it may be developing another skill which I can monetize or something, or a good project which has added a new service vertical to my firm. But every year you need to keep adding on to it, because the day you decide I've done enough in the past and which will pay for the rest of my life, life doesn't work like that.
Thanks a lot for that, Sarthak. Kushal, do you have any parting words for us now?
Yeah, I mean, the only parting words like saying would be that you have to ensure that whatever you're doing, you should have clarity of thought. You should have that intent of achieving something, and I think that'll be easier for you to do any kind of course. As Sarthak again rightly said, completely agree on this. That no matter how many degrees you have, or no matter what are your qualifications, it's like your other things, other activities, and your quality of work that is ultimately going to matter a lot after a point of time. So focus on that. And one piece of advice would be that all these courses, or probably whatever you do in your life, you have to ensure that the ultimate end goal should be very clear. So if you want to make sacrifices, make sacrifices. Like if you want to just ensure that you want to achieve a particular thing, you'll have to sacrifice some or the other thing. And there's this concept of opportunity cost, which is the next best alternative foregone. So you'll have to calculate the opportunity cost of time where you're spending, and only spend time where where you're able to find value and give some insights as well. So that would be my advice. And ending with this quote which I had read on Instagram. So it's like, if you don't sacrifice for what you want, then what you want becomes a sacrifice. So it's like you'll have to sacrifice for some of the other things in order to achieve that thing ultimately. And yeah, that's the thing. So you'll have to just keep focused on your goals, and ultimately you're going to like come up with flying colors.
Thanks a lot for that, Kushal. Thanks, Sarthak. Thanks, Kushal, for joining us. You can find Sarthak and Kushal both on Instagram, Kushal on YouTube as well, and Sarthak on LinkedIn. If you have any specific questions, you can definitely ask them there. I hope that's all right. And do follow them on all social media channels. Thank you for everyone who's been here. And thanks a lot again for doing this, Sarthak and Kushal. I hope to talk to you soon, and have a nice Sunday.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thanks a lot, Anushka, for inviting. It was a great chat.
Absolute
All
pleasure.
right. All right.